Hello, welcome to the latest edition of Last Bell Boxing. Today we're joined by, I'll call him a legend. Legend. There you go, Caj. First one.
Yeah.
Get it in early, Caj. Get it in early. Legend, Caj Sohal from Channel 5. Good evening, Caj.
Evening, guys. How are you?
Jolly good fella, jolly good. And then we're joined by B-Side Ando. We met this quick.
All right, Caj, how are you, mate?
I'm really well, mate. You?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
So, Caj, we don't want to keep you too long, fellas, so we'll jump straight into it.
Yeah.
We've been keen to get you on the channel since the announcement of the deal with Channel 5 and Wasserman.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you set the press release out, which talks about 5 free-to-air shows. I just wonder if you could give us a bit more detail about what the event actually is. Is there any boxes excluded from the Wasserman stable, etc., etc.? So I'll give you the floor, young man.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, as you know, we've worked with lots of different promoters over the years, and like any rights, they come up for grabs every now and again. And when we look at the market to see what's out there, and look at proposals and see what people are doing. And Wasserman to us was really interesting because of the direction they came. I mean, you guys will know the boxing people inside Wasserman, which are the Sohal brothers. But Wasserman as an organization is this huge, for those who don't know, a huge talent agency based in LA. Has a big music side, so I think they represent Drake and Coldplay and Ed Sheeran, all the NFL stars, a lot of footballers over here because they have a football agency as well. So it's a really big deal as an organization, as an agency. And what we liked about them is that they weren't just bringing the boxing; they were bringing all that with it. Because part of what you want from promoters is to promote, and part of that is the resources that you have at your fingertips. And at Wasserman, they have this worldwide expertise. So when we do events, which we've got our first one coming up on Friday, May the 13th at 10 p.m. Hopefully we'll be able to get that message out a little bit better using all the Wasserman sort of avenues as well. So I'm using some of their music guys, some of their other talent that they've got on board. And they've been great to work with. So we've got a deal for this year. We'll see how that goes. We've got 5 fights that we're going to do. Start off in May. We've got another one coming up in June, another one in July, and then 2 at the end of the year. And I think we'll probably announce the other 2 in the next week or 2. And they've got an interesting stable of boxers as well, and that's what drew us to them as well as this they've got, and also the way they operate and their attitude of getting things done, really.
So, obviously in terms of the boxing stable from Wasserman, I would argue the highest profile one is Chris Eubank Jr. So I'm not going to probe too much, but is there a likelihood that we're going to see Chris Eubank Jr. on Channel 5? Would be my question.
I think it's unlikely you'll see him this year on Channel 5. I'm sure you'll see him because he'll be there, I think, at 1 or 2 of the events. We have his cousin Harlem taking part in the first one in May and onwards. But look, we have to be realistic about what we are. Chris Eubank Jr. is now a pay-per-view star. I think his fight on Sky was the most watched on the boxing event that Sky have had for a long time. If ever, I think it really broke a lot of records. So we're realistic about what we are. In terms of how much money we have. We can't go down that pay-per-view route and try and sort of use that money to pay for it. So yeah, but we've always been the home of stars. I think there were rising stars in the past, from Josh Taylor and Tyson Fury. Started on Channel 5, and I think with the people that we've got coming up, with Josh Kelly, who 2 or 3 years ago everyone was raving about, and we still think he's got a future there. With Harlem. And we'll see. We've also got that British middleweight title fight with Linus Udofia and Denzel Bentley, and we think
what a fight that is.
Yeah, it's really funny. For us, it's so when we put together something, when we're working with the promoter. Sorry about a big stripe that's just going through my head right now.
No problem, Caj.
It's just coming through the window.
The A-side fella, you can do what you want.
So the thing is, I was going to say, with these guys, you just don't know where they're going to go, and we're hoping, we've got them at a point. Where they're going to get to a stage where we might lose them because they're going to have to go to pay-per-view, but we want to give them the biggest platform they can. They can come to audiences of 1 million, 2 million, 3 million on Channel 5, which they're not going to do that if they start off their careers elsewhere. So hopefully that's still an attraction to some of those boxers.
And
the last time we spoke, Caj, we were reminiscing about the old days of terrestrial TV and the big stars, the Benz and Eubanks of the world that used to bring in in the tens and in the 20 millions at times viewers. I know you was just mentioning there. You're having about between 2 and 5 million.
I thought. Well, first of all, from we're talking about the 90s and sort of probably at the peak time of that sort of stuff. TV audiences generally have just gone, so much down before then. There was a time, you had 5 channels. You had 4 actually, probably when those fights were on, and and satellite TV didn't exist, so your choice was watch one of these 4. So obviously, audiences were a lot bigger. Now, as you'll know, on any given night, you could be watching DAZN, or you could be watching something else. You could be watching Netflix. You could watch. So audiences just aren't that big anyway, as big. So in terms of figures, they've come down across the board for whatever you do.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think you can find the figures out there, and it's probably not me to talk about Sky's figures and BT figures, but that they're behind paywall, so they're a lot smaller. It's dedicated boxing fans, so they're a lot smaller. But that's what we try and do. That's why we try and build cards where we'll have a fight that I think people like you would really want to watch in terms of Udofia and Bentley.
A trade fight.
Yeah, that's what you guys who know about boxing will know and want to watch. And then for people who might not know so much, they might have heard of Josh Kelly and they've probably heard of the name Eubank. So then it's like a gateway for them to get into what boxing has to offer. So yes, it's really hard to compare. Those days will just never come back because the landscape's just completely changed in terms of TV. It's like when cup finals used to be on and used to get 20 million people watching it. Cup final now will probably get 4 or 5.
Yeah, is there an opportunity for a ripple effect with Wasserman in terms of going into other sports on Channel 5 as well?
That's possible, but I think Wasserman, not necessarily with Wasserman, but I think the thing with Wasserman is to see, the challenge is, right, how big can we make free-to-air boxing?
What I was actually trying to get at, Caj, was we obviously do a live show, as you're aware, and the amount of people that come on or comment in the sidebar that complain about having to pay for subscriptions to other channels, or pay-per-views to other channels, and feel shortchanged because the pay-per-view isn't as strong as they would want it to be for the money they're paying for it. You're in a position where you're showing boxing on free-to-air TV. And when you start putting names like Josh Kelly, Harlem Eubank is going to grow, and Denzel Bentley, people are going to start turning their heads and they're going to start watching these shows a lot more. I'm absolutely positive about. At the minute, shows are being put on a later, aren't they? You're not starting shows at 7 o'clock like on some of these other platforms. Is there a case that if this takes off, you're likely to have a longer show on a Friday or a Saturday evening?
I think there is. With TV, quite often it's quite simple in terms of like commercial sort of equation. Can you deliver the audience? To justify more time? I think given time to build it, I think we can. I think we could go on an hour. I've got to convince my bosses that this is a good idea to do, but I've got to show them that we can do that between 10 and 12, and then say, well, let us go from 9 till 12, and we could do a proper night of boxing. We do have other channels now because now we're in the Paramount sort of stable of things. So there's other places we could look at that we might put bits of it, all of it free to air. There might be other networks. We can, 5 Action, which used to be the older Spike or Paramount one, that could be a possibility. So we're well aware that for boxing fans, you want to see the whole card.
Yeah.
And and what you don't always get that with us, because as soon as you get onto, we just don't have the time that Sky has to do, or BT will have to do 4 or 5 hours, because we've got other programs that demand an audience as well. I hope we get more, and I hope we do more. I think that's up to us now to prove that there's an audience out there that want to watch
Caj, do you know as this boxing's part of Channel 5 probably grows, could there be a scenario for some spin-offs as well? Now you've got multi-channels. I'm thinking of Ringside and things like that, which gives you the backstory to the boxer. That really does help profile, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is, we're having discussions with Wasserman right now about, other programming you can do around the event so people can get to know the boxers a little bit more. I think one of the big benefits we've got is, it's free to air. So, you can make those programs. Anyone who wants to watch them can watch them. But, as you know, people stream a lot of stuff now. So, we've got a new network coming up in the summer called Paramount Plus, which is a streaming platform. And that gives us a great opportunity to maybe, create a boxing silo on there where we can put all our all our old fights for a start. When you think of, I was just thinking the other day, I was just looking at the list, and it was Tyson against Chisora, way back, and who else? Kid Galahad's been on, and there's been some great fights on there, in the Eggington fights in the past. And there's got to be room for that. I think once you're into a streaming platform, I think that there's more opportunities.
Yeah, go on, Andy.
There's absolutely a case to be said that even Josh Kelly, who's apart from Chris Eubank, is probably the most recognisable name. Especially on this show you've got coming up. There's an argument to say that he won't have had as many people viewing his fights on the platforms he's been on than he's going to have on your platform.
I'll guarantee you one thing, that is that all the boxers will say on Monday morning, will turn around and talk to their promoters and their coaches and their trainers and say, I can't believe that. The following day, so many people saw me and said, I saw you on TV last night. Yeah. That's the difference, like on a show, it might be the difference between a show where 100,000 people see you to 1 million people see you.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's it. And also the thing is, it's not boxing fans. A lot of them will be, people who are just tuning in, seeing what's on the other side, don't fancy what's on the other side, or such boxing, I haven't seen this in a while, and they see you for the first time. So I think it's got, in terms of marketing and building a fighter, you want as many people to see you as possible, because, we know how many fights there are now. I mean, the scene in the UK is ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, there's fights up and down the country almost every weekend, every Friday, every Saturday night. There's numerous. It's hard for them to get attention in all that. And, even if you're on, a DAZN or a Sky or a BT, you still can only be seen by the people who've got a subscription.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people, there's no doubt about it, from whichever area. I mean, let's take Josh Kelly as an example, from the Northeast, that I'm sure would love to watch Josh Kelly fight. Maybe friends and family, maybe neighbours, but they're not subscribed to Sky Sports because they don't like football, for example. Exactly, they definitely won't have an app to watch boxing on. They can now watch him on free-to-air TV.
I think that's it, and also there's no barrier, there's no money barrier now. You don't have to be able to afford it to see him. So if you're his auntie or his uncle or a friend or whatever, and you might not be able, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to have subscription to Sky Sports or BT, but it's a great service, but if you've got the money, that's fantastic. But I think what we can do is just give those, more casual fans, and perhaps people who struggle, especially these days, struggling with all subscriptions, which people do, and, just making household budgets work, still have an option to see what is a great sport without having to pay for it.
One common theme that we have had from feedback, and I've got a couple of questions, Caj. One common theme is that they applaud you at Channel 5 for putting boxing on terrestrial TV. That's a cut that we get regular comments where they actually applaud you. It can't be easy within the restraints of terrestrial TV to get these cards over the line.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing is, most sports, people who are non-sporting understand. Boxing is one of those ones which kind of divides people. A lot of non-sporting people within the TV industry struggle a little bit with boxing and what it looks like and what it is. A contact sport. A fighting sport, if you want a better phrase. So sometimes there can be a little reluctance about putting that on. So that is a little bit, it's a challenge that we have, and I think everyone has who puts on boxing. And as we've seen in the last few days, there's other things that swirl around boxing that make it even more difficult sometimes for you to convince people this is something that's a noble art and that that you should treat seriously. But I think I'm convinced that and this is one of the things that we've been talking about for years. I'm convinced there's a huge audience for it still. It will never get back to the Ben Eubank days of the 16, 17, 18 million because that's just A, there's not that many people watching. B, those fights will cost millions, and recouping. The model's changed since pay-per-view. That model has changed now.
Yeah,
but there's still really, really good fights that you could put on that I think would get a good audience. Live sport is still live sport. People want to see it live. That's one of the few things it has value of in those terms is that the highlights are great, but live is really where it's at. You can witness something truly amazing.
And I truly think timing's everything, Caj, because people are becoming a little bit despondent to the likes of DAZN and Sky Sports where they're watching these cards. And let's be honest, the quality, they're so one-sided, the undercard, it's untrue. So I think that there is a gap in the market there for good trade fights. But I do think there might be a bit of narrative needed behind it to get the casuals to buy into the fight, if you will.
Yeah, I'll take your point on that. I mean, that's something that we're going to work on hard with Josh and with Harlem and with Nathan Gorman as well, who'll be featuring at some point. Those guys. We want people to know who these guys are.
Yeah,
more about than just get under the skin a little because they're all really interesting characters, aren't they? All of them, in their own rights, are interesting guys. And we, the challenge we throw to promoters is I don't want to fight. It doesn't do me any good if that fight's over in one round or two rounds. Just the nature of the way people watch boxing. There's a lot of switch off. So from a broadcaster's point of view, I don't want a fight to go. So it almost has to be as close as you can make it in terms of a pairing for it to work for us. Yeah. Different model for other people because you might be building a person up to a pay-per-view. But for us, we need fights that are truly well matched for it to work.
So now you know that we're big time, Caj. We've got a couple of questions, that are coming from some of our viewers. So I'm going to just ask you one, then we'll move on to Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
So I've had this a couple of times. What is the best part of your role as head of sport at Channel 5?
Blimey.
I know it's
a lot of the bad ones. I can tell you about the bad bits. No, the best part is I've been sort of working in sports broadcasting for I started out in Nottingham Hospital Radio. That's where I first started, where I was attempted to report on Nottingham Forest games for Hospital Radio. Luckily, the people who were listening were all ill and probably couldn't see just how bad I was. But I've been that was in what was that 1992. So I've been doing it a long time, and it never really lucky. It just never feels like work. It's just you get used to working weekends, of course, because that's when sport happens. But I think sometimes it's being there, but also I have to say, in TV, quite often you're in a truck in a car park. You're there, you're not there. You could be anywhere really.
Yeah.
But I think just being around the sport is interesting, and boxing is relatively new to me in terms of the other sports. I was mainly football and cricket, so boxing has really been something that I've been involved in probably for the last 8 years or so, rather than the longer period. And I found it fascinating just because of the way it works, the way it doesn't work.
Yeah,
it's not like any other sport.
The different facets of the business deal, Caj.
Yeah, and just the structure. There's no governing body.
Yeah,
or there's 9 governing bodies. There isn't. You don't normally with other sports. You have that sort of, the best will play the best and all that. There's a system and a pyramid. Now boxing doesn't have that, and there are advantages and disadvantages to that. But it's a fascinating sport. So yeah, I think I'm very lucky to do what I do and meet the people I do and see some great sport really.
And then let's move on to Tyson Fury then. I'm conscious of time. So let's take a prediction for the weekend then, Caj. How do you think that the big fight's going to pan out?
You know what? I knew you were going to ask me this. So this morning, when I was having my porridge, it was Tyson. By lunchtime, it was White. And this afternoon, was a cup of tea. It was Tyson again. I was just dropping the kids off somewhere. and it was white again. So I can make an argument for both. I really can. I mean, the logical, rational side of me would say it's got to be Tyson. It's got to be Tyson. But then something just tells me, just looking at white, and I'm thinking this could just be the fight where the Tyson fairy tale sort of ends.
It feels like you're edging your bets a little bit here.
Totally. I am sitting on the fence. I would not believe.
I'll put another scenario to you. This is my last penny. I've got to invest it in either one of the boxes. Where am I going?
All right. Okay. In that case, that's going to Tyson. You long shot, but you'll probably make more if you put it on white. I mean, I'm terrible at this, predicting anything. But I can convince myself that either of those guys is going to win. I haven't always said that with Tyson fights, but I mean, look, it's just what a story the Tyson Fury thing is, from start to finish. You'd be hard pressed to write that. So, I'd never bet against him on that basis, because I just don't know what he's going to do next. And equally, this could be the man to do it. This could just be the sort of size of him might be a benefit to him. He's got punching power in both hands is big. But then we said that against Wilder as well, didn't we? So he came through that. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's great that you have two boxes. It's funny. I was reading something in Boxing News, which I'd forgotten, and it was about when Lennox Lewis became heavyweight champion of the world, and they said the last British boxer who became heavyweight champion was something like 1899, before Lennox Lewis. And I'm thinking, wow. And I'm thinking, well, look at us now.
Yeah.
And I think in years to come, we might think this was an absolute golden age.
Bob Fitzsimmons was the boxer.
Was it? I knew you'd know. Is that right? Was that fact right? Is it? Or was it 1899 to Lennox Lewis in 1992? That's almost 100 years.
It's mad.
And then you think, where are we now? And we've got these two guys. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great event, whatever happens.
Yeah, I agree. So, Caj, we'll bring it to an end there, young man. Okay. So, like I said, really appreciate you coming on the channel.
I hope to see you at one of our fights coming up soon, and it'd be nice to see you and get your opinions on what we're doing. And as I say, to anyone who's watching and listening, I'm always open to feedback. I definitely don't know it all, so I'd love to hear from people and what they think about what we're doing.
We can make that happen, Caj. We can
Good
make
or
bad. Take care then, Caj. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, lad.